The one who would become the dreaded Sith Lord Darth Maul was originally a Zabrak born on the planet Dathomir. In canon, we don't have much information on Maul's childhood, aside from the fact that he was the son of Mother Talzin and that he had two brothers, Farrell and Opress. Maul and his brother were given their full body tattoos when they were mere babies, as was Night Brother tradition. They grew up in a poverty-ridden village with all the other Night Brothers, where they were treated pretty much as slaves by the dominant Night Sisters. When he was a few years old, Maul was kidnapped by Palpatine after he betrayed Mother Talzin in promise of making her his new apprentice. Now the apprentice of the Sith Lord, Maul underwent brutal training both physically and mentally, which forged him into the merciless killing machine whose only purpose was to serve his master. In Legends, we are given a far wider and more detailed view on Maul's childhood and teenage years. In this timeline, Maul was instead the son of the Night Sister Caecina and an unknown Zabrak Night Brother. The father was killed shortly after Maul was conceived, as was tradition in the Night Sister-dominated society. Not wanting her son to grow up as a slave, Caecina sought ways to get Maul off the planet and away from the other Night Sisters. She eventually got this opportunity when she came into contact with Palpatine, a secret Sith Lord who was exploring the planet Dathomir for secrets. She begged him to take her son with him, to which Palpatine accepted after discovering that the young Zabrak was exceptionally gifted with the Force. Ironically, Maul being given to Palpatine actually subjected him to a life far worse than that of a Night Brother. For the first few years of his new life, the young Maul was kept hidden on Mustafar, in an isolated location where he was taken care of by droids. The Zabrak's presence was soon found out by Plagueis, who gave his own apprentice Palpatine permission to train him as a Sith assassin, a position that was supposed to be treated as nothing more but a disposable tool for the two Sith Lords. But Plagueis was too trusting of his own apprentice, as Palpatine had other plans for the boy. Initially, Maul didn't know that he was being taught by the Dark Lord of the Sith, but nonetheless the training was still brutal. Any mistake or sign of mercy was met with severe punishment. His early training consisted of him being beaten with wooden sticks by combat droids, until he would succumb to the absolute rage and unlock his abilities and use the Force to defend himself. Once he successfully used the Force to disarm the combat droid, Maul was then taken to an uninhabited planet to start his formal training with the Force. This consisted of Palpatine telekinetically hurling rocks at Maul, hurting the boy and making him angrier and angrier, until he finally tapped into his rage and threw rocks back at his master with the Force. Then came the history lessons, but with a twist. Palpatine had Maul chained upside down over a tank of acid, and he had his young apprentice slowly descend towards the acid with the goal of freeing himself before it was too late. During this exercise, Palpatine explained to Maul the full history of the Jedi, the Galactic Republic, and the Sith. He explained how the Jedi were brainwashed servants of a corrupt republic, and that the past Sith failed in fully destroying the Jedi, and that the rule of two was the answer that would finally lead them to victory. And right when he finished giving this history lesson, Maul freed himself from his chains at the very last second and escaped the acid tank underneath him. Impressed with his student's successes, Palpatine finally gifted Maul with his first lightsaber, to which he initially practiced with by cutting down trees and getting a feel of its raw power. Feeling secured that his student was completely obedient to him, Palpatine took Maul on a trip to Coruscant, where the two cloaked Darksiders stood right in front of the Jedi Temple and watched their enemies. Maul was excited to see his soon-to-be prey in front of his very eyes, eager at the thought of confronting them once he had finished his training. Another trip was later taken to Megiddo, where the two of them traveled through the snowy landscapes. Wishing to impress his master, Maul sprinted as fast as he could up and down a mountain at record speed. When he came back to his master, he expected praise, but instead got picked up with the Force and was tossed into a huge icy lake by Palpatine. Struggling to get out and fearing for his life, Maul cried out to Palpatine to come save him. He got no response. Then it hit him: fear. He had to turn his fear into anger. Anger for his master never showing any compassion for him ever in his life. This anger fueled the young boy into swimming through the icy water and allowed him to make it back to the shore. As the freezing boy approached his master, Palpatine just looked down at him with a stone-cold face and turned away. And then they just continued to walk together as if nothing had happened. This was a naive mistake on Maul's part. He wasn't supposed to like his master, nor want to make his master like him. This was not the way of the Sith. The only emotions a Sith was supposed to have, at least in Palpatine's opinion, were fear, anger, hate, and pure rage. At the age of 10, Maul was sent to train at the Orsis Academy, a school that trained highly skilled assassins. It was made clear that he couldn't use any of his Force abilities other than his heightened senses, as a means of keeping Maul's presence low-key and not to attract any Jedi, as they forbade the Academy to teach any Force sensitives. This even meant that he had to endure getting hit by low-impact blaster bolts, even though he could have dodged most of them through the Force. For the next 5 years, Maul became one of the top students at the Academy, and he even made a friend, a female Nautolan named Kilindi. She was another student there, and also a former slave who ended up murdering her entire slave family before escaping and coming to the Academy. She seemed to have a crush on him, and she even once invited him to go swimming with her. But this relationship didn't last long, as after Maul finished his training there, he was ordered by Palpatine to go back and kill everyone at the Academy, even the students. And Maul did as he was told, going to the Academy and slaughtering everyone with ease, even his friend Kilindi showing her no mercy. Eventually, the signature Sith tattoos were slowly and torturously applied to Maul's skin. The way Palpatine applied the tattoos was so painful for Maul that he had to be restrained. 2 years passed, and the 17-year-old Maul was on the last stage of his training. His final test was to survive on a remote planet for a month, or at least that's what it seemed. A month passed and Palpatine arrived at his apprentice's camp. He looked upon his weakened student who had been starving for a long time now, as there was nothing to really eat on the planet that they were on. He then told Maul to get up, and that they were going to duel, and that his test was to defeat him. The weakened Maul, of course, lost. Showing clear signs of disappointment, Palpatine told Maul that he had failed the final test, and that he was going to be replaced by another apprentice he had been training secretly. This sheer act of betrayal enraged Maul and caused him to leap at his master and bite at his hand, sucking in blood and spitting it at Palpatine's face before finally falling back down. Knowing that he had no way of defeating his master, Maul braced for his demise, but Palpatine didn't kill him, but rather he began laughing as if he had told the funniest joke in the galaxy. He then revealed to his confused apprentice that the final test was not to defeat him, but to want to kill him. The test was to have the courage to want to kill your master, and Maul passed. There was no other secret apprentice. That was all a lie to get him enraged. And at that very moment, Palpatine proclaimed Maul a Sith Lord and gave him the title of Darth. From then on, he was to be only known as Darth Maul, Dark Lord of the Sith. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, may the Force be with you.